Daily Graphic starts this morning and says Delta Force storms court to release 13 members, 8 arrested. That's the story. Also on page 40, government condemns Delta Force, and other stories on the front page. Rawlings Lord's Media Coalition against Galamsey. The BNFT says cedi reverses dollar rout gains 1% in historic run. The finder, banks indicted, they answer only 21% of phone calls of customers. Restricted election campaigns to 6 months. That's from Kadeo. And the Delta Force story is captured here. Delta Force's storm court to free 13 suspects. That's the Finder newspaper. Weekend Today says senior high school student gang raped, a photograph of the IGP, and public toilets pose danger to residents at Gomua Dominase in the central region. And also the Independent newspaper, President Akufo-Addo holds 4-day government retreat with his ministers. And that story is on page 2. We'll stay some other stories captured by the Independent. The vigilante Delta Force story is also here. My guest this morning to do the talking to my extreme left is a member of the NPP's communication team, Ibrahim Eje. Ibrahim, good morning.
Good morning, Brian.
And hope you're doing great.
Alhamdulillah, we're good. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much for joining us. And then the Member of Parliament for the Bulsa South constituency, Dr. Clement Apak, member of the NDC. Good morning to
I'm grateful. It's always a pleasure.
We are grateful for your time this morning too.
I'm teaching you bully.
Yes, I'll pick up.
So what did you say just now?
I said good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Did you sleep well?
Oh, okay. All right. Now, a couple of the newspapers, the Daily Guide, the Ghanaian Times, Daily Graphic, the Today newspaper, the Finder, all of them carrying this story. But a quick one here. We've just received some information. We're just hoping that indeed this is true. We're asking the police service to quickly come in there and confirm, because we have a document signed by VCOP Ken Yabwa, the regional police commander, suggesting that the 13 persons who were freed yesterday from the KMA Circuit Court in Kumasi have turned themselves in, and they are in police custody. This is signed by DCOP Ken Yabwa, the police, Ashanti Regional Police Commander. We're asking the police to quickly come in and confirm. We'll confirm this this morning. But the newspapers have the story. Delta Force storms court. 13 of them were released. The judge were told the police had to protect her and get her out of a court. The story says that some members of Delta Force, a political vigilante group aligned to the NPP yesterday, stormed the Kumasi, the KMA Circuit Court to free 13 of their members who had been arraigned before the court for throwing the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator out of office last month. But shortly after the incident, 8 members of the group who had allegedly aided the 13 accused persons to escape were arrested. Now, the same paper carries the story from government that talks about what happened. On page 40, government condemns Delta Force. Now, following acts of lawlessness by some members of the Delta Force in Kumasi, the Minister of Interior, Mr. Ambrose Derry, has reiterated government commitment to deal with any person or group that breaks the law, irrespective of their political affiliation. And so he described the activities of Delta Force as regrettable and unacceptable, adding government totally condemns the situation and will not relent in effort to clamp down on their activities. Ibrahim, let me start with you. The police are working. People have raised concerns that taking 13 Delta Force members to court without adequate police presence is itself suspicious. Government says it condemns the act. How do we go in dealing with this vigilante menace?
Right, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
And good morning to my good friend, Honorable Clement Apak. It's so good to say that word, eh? Honorable Clement Apak.
I hope to live up to the meaning.
You've done well. You've done well. And assalamu alaikum to you. what is happening right now with Delta Force, and they're not vigilante. Let's understand what vigilante is. It's a group of people who appoint themselves as law enforcement without authority. And how you can migrate from providing security services during an election time to becoming vigilante, I don't know, in terms of the law enforcement aspect. So sometimes let's not attribute something to them that they do not own.
They are not vigilante groups?
No,
They're
by
not.
the definition of the term.
Then there must be a gang.
Okay.
Whichever way you can call it, gang, what have you, it's initially providing security services. Am I right? Good. But that's just by the by. I think without equivocation, what needs to happen, Bright, is that the Delta Force and any other group that does what they're doing should be condemned without equivocation. There should be no way in which their actions should be condoned. There should be no support or justification at all. This is what needs to happen. And I'm very happy with the way in which the government has come out to strongly condemn it. You mentioned regarding the police, about the inadequate police security at the court. We heard different reports of about 20, but the media, men and women on the ground, said there was only 5 security services, police officers at the court, which is woefully inadequate, woefully inadequate. And it's something that, again, I'm hoping that the Ashanti Regional Command will look into, because per the text you just read to us, they've now turned themselves in.
That's if it's confirmed.
If it's confirmed. And of course, the due process of the court will continue in terms of, again, their arraignment and then being, how do I call it, processed for court and the procedures that follow. It's an embarrassment to our democracy, what they've done, given the reasons that they are purportedly saying that they were promised jobs and what have you. Who hasn't been promised jobs? Yet the majority of Ghanaians are, in fact, being patient in that space, because we know the economy in which the NPP government has inherited. We know. And people are recognizing that these things take time. And it's an affront, as I say, to our democracy, Bright, because if every single person was to take the same view, and it's been happening throughout our democracy. We saw what happened. This is not for equalization. I just mention it to show that it's something that cuts across. We saw what happened 2009, the Azorka boys. And it's something that shouldn't be countenanced. Others, I'm sure, will take you back to 2001 and so on. And in 2012, it should not happen. And it's high time that the political parties, wherever their supporters are going astray, the mass of the political party, the bulk, the head, body, and tail comes together and condemns them, and you give them no quarter. Don't give them any, because once somebody breaks rank and says, oh, but you can't understand. Understand what?
They don't seem to enjoy support from your party.
No, they don't. I mean, if you look at, and it's important that you go through social media, listen to the radio phone call-ins, because I can sit here and give you my point of view. Honorable Clement Appak can give you his point of view. We are two persons. But if you want to see where the national conversation is going, go to social media, and then when the radio stations open the phone lines and listen. And across board, whereby you're having cross-party members, I'm talking NDC, NPP, and CPP, and so on. The condemnation is, I would say, just as at a glance, 90%. At a glance. Do you get me? And
I'm
so,
asking you this because, for instance, you earlier said that they are not a vigilante group. Now, when these persons...
in terms of definition.
Yes, when these persons were going around seizing state properties that they think have been taken over by some personalities, they got the support of certain people in government. And you can describe that group as a vigilante group, a group that goes to enforce laws without authority. So why are you saying they are not vigilante groups? And why do you think they are not getting support from government? Because we saw Mr. Obribwanyen and co. urging them to go ahead and seize these properties.
For me, that is wrong to do so. It is wrong to do so because once you allow somebody or a group of people to become lawless, or you sanction it, it is not right. There's ways in which you can express your support without actually condoning a violent act or an unlawful act. Those who were going around seizing vehicles, right now the law stands that if you have you have what you call bailiffs, authorized bailiffs, whereby if you owe a company money, or indeed an individual money, they can resort to a private entity who can then go and seize property by law. We have them in this country. If you owe any of these small loans companies money, they can resort to the courts and empower. In America, they're called the sheriffs, but it's bailiffs. And what in the UK, the same, bailiffs. We have the same thing in Ghana. Somebody owes you money, or a company, oftentimes it's a corporate entity. They can engage the services of a private company with the necessary warrants in order to seize goods to defray the money that you owe them.
Is the police able to stop them?
Why not? Why not? The question is, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but yes, they can stop. They have the authority to. But if they have the requisite authority given by a court of law, I mentioned a bailiff, using the powers of a bailiff in order to do what? To retrieve monies that somebody legitimately owns, and you have the documentation to enter that property, then you can do that. But here's the case.
The police has the power, the support of government to stop these persons.
Say that again, please, Brian.
The police service, do they have the support of government to stop these persons?
Fully. Fully. You recall back in December or so, where you had certain people seizing toll booths. What did President Akufo-Addo say? At the time, President-elect Akufo-Addo, because President Mahama was still in charge. And he said that the police should do everything within their authority to arrest all these perpetrators. That was President-elect.
And the act.
That was President-elect.
He addressed the nation and asked them to stop. They defied him. He went to Kumasi, and yet the very day he left, they defied him.
Yes, I mean it's.
They're undermining his authority.
Is that what the Delta Force? I don't know whether it's undermining his authority. The authority is clear.
He appointed a national security coordinator, and they said we don't want him. They go and remove him from office.
That's not undermining the authority. You know, my fingers are not the same. You can have so many guests on your platform, and we will respect the authority of you, right, as the moderator. But one or two may decide to go astray. That does not undermine your authority. Your authority remains. I'll just land here. Your authority remains intact. And the authority is there, and it will be acted upon. That one I can assure you. But let's understand that in a nation of 27 million people, one or two will go astray. It's what the government does, what the leadership does, what the president does to enshrine and enforce that authority. And President Akufo-Addo is doing exactly that, empowering the police.
I'll come back to you. Dr. Park, so it's, we toyed with it. Some analysts have suggested that we toyed with these vigilante groups, and now this is what we have on our hands. Are we able to deal with it, and which direction do we go?
Well, let me say thank you, Bright, and to say good morning to viewers, particularly my constituency in the Busa South constituency of the Upper East. And it's been long, but it's good to see my good friend Ibrahim again. We have a long history of engaging each other on various platforms. Bright, let's face it, let's be factual, let's be honest. This development is extremely worrisome. It was only yesterday that the Minister of National Security came to Parliament and on the floor of the House answered questions pertaining to the existence of vigilante groups and what his outfit was doing towards disbanding them. Of course, if you want to go by the dictionary definition of vigilante groups, we can have a nuanced debate about whether these groups in question, particularly the one in focus, the Delta Force, but we know there are others, depending on which part of the country you are. Incidentally, all of them are affiliated to the NPP, at least those that are making the news. Now, the minister had said that officially there are no vigilante groups to be disbanded because there is no record of any group registered formally that would then serve as a basis for disbandment.
How did
Because
how did Parliament take that?
well, there was an obvious discussion, although a lot of us didn't get the chance to pose questions. But the fact still remains, and I think that in part of the answers of the minister, he agreed that there were groups whose activities certainly were not wholesome and did not complement the peace and security of our nation. But you see, we must have this debate within the context. And there are a few fundamental questions to be asked. What are the factors that precipitate the formation of these groups, whether we want to call them vigilante or want to call them gangs? Where do they get their sources of inspiration, support, and sponsorship? How do they feel so empowered that in the particular instance of the Delta Force, they can engage in daylight brazen assault on the rule of law? Because you see, we can talk about the fact that these groups have existed, but what we are seeing now, you would agree, is unprecedented. I mean, when was the last time you actually heard of a group mobilizing itself to reject a nominee or somebody assigned by the commander-in-chief to represent him in a region as a regional security coordinator, manhandled him, assaulted him, walked him out of the office? In fact, he was rescued by the police. And of course, there was a hue and cry, wide condemnation, statements were made, and the law has to take its course. So the processes begin. The rendition we are getting is that apparently they have shown remorse. I have not seen the videos, I have not read the stories. And indeed, the president had the chance to go to Kumasi, the Ashanti region, on a thank you tour, interacted with various community leaders, including Ashanti-Hini himself, Otunfo, and gave an assurance to the Ashanti-Hini, and I believe through him, to the rest of us. In addition to the assurance he had given the nation when he addressed us, that he was not going to countenance lawlessness, that the rule of law was going to apply. No one was going to be allowed to act or conduct him or herself in a manner that would suggest that that person is above the law. And what do we see? They go to the court, destroy property. By and large, if you read the Ghana Bar Association statement of condemnation, assaulted the judge and freed their colleagues in broad daylight in a constitutional democracy, a nation that is celebrating its 60th anniversary. Would you call this progress? It is simply shocking and unconscionable. And look, we should not undervalue the role of political parties and political party leaders in giving oxygen to groups like this to engage this type of outrageous, reckless, unacceptable behavior.
Is government condemnation enough?
Right, how can it be enough? The president spoke about this at the State of the Nation's address. He indicated the fact that he had ordered the outgone and the present IGP to take the needed measures. And this was in the wake of the seizure of toll booths, the seizure of, even you remember the incident at the passport office and the ports. We heard about the Kandahar boys in Tamale going and raiding the SADA offices, taking property, beating up staff of the NHIA. We heard it recently too, even in the eastern region. And so if the president has said all of this and he has put the security on alert, as the chair of the National Security Council, the president chairs the National Security Council, and yet this is happening. even at the time when his party officials seem to be singing a song that is sympathetic to this behavior, then we have a problem.
I see. I'll put this question back to you, but Ibrahim, now, when this started, when the seizure started, the civil society rose up and said the president should speak. Then the counter reaction was that this is the work of the police service. The president need not speak, but the police service need to go in and arrest those who are perpetrating this. The Daily Graphics is reporting, for instance, that on this particular story, now on security at the court, when the 13 appeared before, the IGP said because the suspect had willingly showed up in court, the police did not anticipate such an incident. Is this the police service that we have developed all this while? I mean, the kind of talk the IGP is talking here, if what the Daily Graphic is saying is right, is correct.
Okay. First and foremost, let's put things in balance. The police do a lot of good work, and we commend each and every one of them.
Did they do good work this time?
Hold on. I said,
they took 13 Delta Force to court.
I said, let's put things in balance. It's not to exonerate the police on this instance. But sometimes an incident will happen, and we want to blame the police like they were spawn of the devil or something, when by and large, they do a fantastic job for Ghana and Ghanaians, we the citizens. And so let's somehow quarantine some incidences. That's not to exonerate them, but sometimes an issue comes up and we're just lambasting the police, whereby we don't need to do that across board. But they do a good job. But here's a case whereby they needed to be more far-thinking, if I can put it that way, in the security detail that was attached to
the persons appearing before court.
The 13 that were arraigned. Let's take it at that, and not use this incident to be indicative that from 1 a.m. to 12 p.m. to 12 p.m. midnight, the police are not up to task. They are, by and large. But let's understand something. Sometimes you cannot legislate for every permutation that will happen. I was coming to the studio this morning. I learned that one of the police officers assigned was a pregnant police officer. She's a woman, a pregnant woman. How far pregnant, we don't know. But oftentimes, if they're more than 3 months, you'll be assigned desk duty. But here's the case that maybe not seeing or somehow imagining that things can get out of hand this way.
Isn't it their job?
No, I'm just saying.
To gather intelligence and know that this could be a chaotic situation.
On that one,
this is a group that walked all the way to the Regional Security Council and drove out an officer appointed by the president.
Bryce,
They're going to court.
I agree
and
with
a
you.
pregnant policewoman is made to accompany them.
I agree with you. Totally. That's why I said on this incident, it's clearly the case that the police didn't think it through properly or well. So I agree with you. I just wanted to temper my submission without thinking, oh, the police are no good, etc., etc. They do a fantastic job, by and large, not all the time, but by and large. But on this incident, nobody should come and support them. We want them to be 24-karat gold all the time.
Right.
And that's what we should expect. And so when we admonish the police on this incident, they should take it in good faith. That what we are doing is giving a critique of decisions they made that do not augur well or do not speak to the 24-karat gold service that we know they can deliver to Ghana. But on the issue here, just as a follow-up, it's important that nobody comes out to condone what these guys are doing. Don't give them any room whereby you're having some base of support. Because, as I mentioned earlier, there are Ghanaians across the length and breadth of this country who kicked out the NDC because of the corruption and malfeasance that we saw across board, even NDC members who said, no, this time around we need change, and they voted for change. So what you need to do is to be part of the democratic process. I'm talking the Delta Force and other groups, and wait. Ganyobake Natri or Abotre. Am I right? And we've been doing so all this while.
Is this the position of your party? Or
it is the position of the party.
So,
because
so
you heard President
when the member of parliament for Asin North, Asin Central, goes on radio stations and says that nobody, not even the president, can stop the Delta Force,
He's wrong.
So
Honorable Kennedy.
So what has the party done? If that's the position of your party, what has the party done?
Listen across board if you want to know the position of the party. And you hear the sentiments are aligned with what I'm saying to you right now. Nobody is, as what Honorable Kennedy Ajapong is saying, he is totally wrong. Honorable Kennedy Ajapong, you are wrong on this matter.
Everyone knows he's wrong, but what has the party done?
I just said to you, when you listen to across board, you hear the party members speaking in tune with what my submission here. That's how you get to know the party line. Nobody's giving them quarter. But as I say, my fingers, they're not the same.
So some will rebel, that's what you're saying.
Right. Because Honorable Kennedy Ajapong, if these Delta forces came and attacked any member of your family, are you telling me you will not take action against them? Is that what he's telling us? So you should come and review his notes. I'm talking about Honorable Kennedy Ajapong. This one, you're wrong. You do not give any succor, any kind of you don't accommodate this kind of action. It is wrong. And I'm happy that government, President Akufo-Addo, across board, are condemning it, and action will be taken of that, Bright. I assure you.
I'm grateful. Right. Dr. Park, yes. There are calls for the two political parties to meet and see how they can disband these groups, that of the NDC, the Kandahar, the Azoka, and the rest, because the concerns are that from what is happening, the other group might take up to the same in case of anything.
Look.
Is that a direction to go? Because we need to deal with this once and for all.
Let's face it. What has happened is a slap in the face of the president. It's not just an affront to the rule of law.
That we know.
It's an international embarrassment.
It's embarrassment.
But the reasons,
how do we deal with it?
There are reasons. If at the beginning, when these signals, the flares were going up, action had been taken. If political leaders, as she said, and I agree with him, a member of parliament, did not make statements that gave them assurances and hope of being untouchable, if the Deputy National Secretary did not come out defending and also indicating that the invincible forces were untouchable, this that we are seeing would not have happened.
My producers are telling me that Honorable Kennedy Ajapong has made a U-turn yesterday, suggesting that he no longer.
But you see, this is why we always talk about the role of leadership and the effect that words can be given. His words, the words of Obribwahin and other leaders, including my younger brother and younger Vandal Semieoku, inspired this. If action had been taken against the assault of DSP Nanka Bruce at the Flagstaff House,
it is still in court.
Perhaps we wouldn't have gotten to where we are. But I just want to make a point.
Yes, because let's deal with how to deal with these
groups. We will,
but
but as we speak now, Ghana is in a state of insecurity. We shouldn't joke around with it.
That's according to you.
Oh, but
the National Security Minister has assured that things are being worked.
We have a National Security Minister. We have a National Security Advisor. We have a National Security Coordinator, the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, who has actually pronounced about bringing an end to lawlessness. And we see the most brazen act of lawlessness in broad daylight, an affront to our Constitution and the rule of law. With all our hopes and aspirations, if we cannot feel safe and secure, how are we going to develop?
Ibrahim, is it
how are we going to change the conditions
that is entirely hopeless?
We claim.
Is that the situation?
No, but think about it. There is
take sips of water.
A parallel security arrangement.
I mentioned to you earlier that our fingers are not the same, and I mentioned to you also that when you open the phone lines, because you're asking, are we in a state of insecurity? Are Ghanaians feeling insecure?
Is that what
that is not the case. That is not the case.
Do you feel secure?
Because
I'm very secure.
I don't feel secure.
Okay, can we twist the question? Are we assured of our security?
Yes.
Because I am scared now that don't even know that I'll leave this studio and Delta Force will
They
pounce
could be
on me
waiting for
because
you in
I might
front
have
of
said
them.
something against them.
That is not the
They
case.
could be waiting for us in front of
Yeah,
of the
They
station.
can be waiting right outside this door.
Very well.
And we'll deal with them. Are you with me? We're not in a state of insecurity. Let's understand that. You know, we have to be mature in our submissions on issues like this. Not that there's anybody displaying immaturity. Mature in the sense that how do we build consensus, and you don't rather unravel the consensus we're building. When you start talking about insecurity, you're empowering the Delta Force. Let them know they are weak, that they can't do FOCO. So,
How do we do that?
Ibrahim,
How do we
I'll
do that?
explain
The
it to you.
GBA is already expressing
Let me
worry
explain
about
it
what
to
has
you.
happened. So
Let me
how do we
explain.
do that?
The way in which you do that, you speak with one voice. You're having here the police needing to empower themselves. They have the authority. That's why I mentioned I didn't want to lambast them. Generally, they do a good job. Here, there's a failing in terms of the police and the decisions they've taken on this very incident.
It's actually a failing of government.
Because had they done that, had the police done what was necessary and thought every permutation through, these guys would have been stopped straight away. Are you with me? And so it's important to understand that. We are very secure. You have a strong government that is giving all the necessary support. There's no way in which anybody can show me any utterance in which way the power and authority of the police are being undermined at all. Rather, they're being empowered by the executive, President Akufo-Addo. They're being given all the necessary powers. And I mentioned earlier, back in December, when he was president-elect, he was urging the police to do everything. The president at the time, we didn't hear much from him. I'm talking President Mahama. But that's not to go back. Moving forward, President Akufo-Addo has empowered the police, and we are urging the police, do everything within your legitimate power to make sure that you stamp your authority on this matter once and for all.
Look, to
Let's
the extent
wrap
that
up on that.
the police
I'm moving on.
have a responsibility to protect us, I would agree that indeed they need to be a lot more up and doing. And quite clearly, they should exercise their mandates. They should dispense their responsibility to the good people of Ghana. But the fact remains that the buck stops with the president.
To deal with it.
He is the one who we expect to ensure that we can live in a peaceful, united nation so we can explore and exploit.
Is your party going to disband the group?
I don't know that we have an official group.
Ibrahim, is your party going to do
I don't know that. But just before it comes in, remember, right before the
you
election.
don't know you have
right before the election.
The
former Minister for Interior had begun a process to address this issue of groups, whether we call them vigilante groups or gangs. And I quite remember that he had invited the then IGP, and they had begun some processes. So perhaps the current Minister for Interior, can take it up from there, because it is not healthy.
Should your party disband
I don't believe that
Azoka
any
boys?
party should have a vigilante group.
So your party should disband them.
If they have them, they should be disbanded.
Ibrahim, I'm sure your party will
Absolutely.
do the same.
And I'm happy that Clement came back on track. Honorable Clement came back on No, but why do I say so? When Bright asked you a question as to the Azoko boys, you said, I don't know whether we have... And when we all know that you have Azoko boys...
Well, but even the Minister for National Security says
Clement,
that
this
vigilante
program is more
groups-
sweeter when you let
All right.
one person talk.
Okay, very well.
Thank you. Bryce, I'm just landing here.
Okay, land.
What we need to do, all the parties, you disband them. Disband them for the election period where you feel that you may need additional persons to guard polling stations, and we all do that across board, then yes, for that particular period, you need them across board. Because what do we want? We want to make sure that we have integrity at the ballot box. And that's what Let My Vote Count Alliance stood for and stands for. Here's the point. So post that, you're, as we say, a special vehicle. That vehicle is now no longer necessary. And all the parties, NPP, NDC, let's disband these groups.
I'm grateful.
We don't need them.
I'm grateful.
And we shouldn't be importing missionaries to come and train them. We make all kinds of promises and assurances to them. And when they are not being fulfilled, they decide to take the loss.
Let's stay with a statesman this morning. Minister, excavators seized from galamseyers must be blown up. The Daily Graphic has a story. Rawlings Lords Media Coalition Against Galamsey. Former President J.J. Rawlings yesterday commended the media for establishing a coalition against illegal mining to advocate the end of a menace in the country. He said, and I quote, "I'm glad you're doing a good campaign against this galamsey," he said, and urged the media on to also champion a crusade against indiscipline. The statesman talks about the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, John Peter Mewu, who is advocating a radical solution to the menace of illegal mining. He believes the excavators with which the illegal miners are working causes environmental and other challenges, and so they should be seized and blown up. He's suggesting that they should not only be seized, but also blown up. He said if you seize them and keeps them, he doesn't know what you're going to do with them. He's asking that seize this equipment and blow them up. Dr. Park, let me start with you. Now, the media campaign is expected to push government to act quicker. Mr. Mewu seemed to suggest that seize the equipment and blow them up. In fact, a few weeks ago, he had given these persons 3 weeks to get off or face the wrath of government. This fight, this particular direction, is it sustainable? Can it do the trick?
Well, right. First of all, we must all agree that galamsey, which by definition is small-scale illegal mining, has caused devastation to our natural environment. You know, when I served in government, I had the chance to go to some parts of this country on assignments to do with some of these kinds of issues. And it is sickening, it is shocking and breathtaking to see how water bodies have been polluted, to see how farmlands have been decimated and destroyed. And to think about the chemicals that are used, the lead, the arsen, the mercury, the cyanide, and the effects, the medium to long term, quite clearly calls for a concerted, unified national effort to try and bring this menace to an end, because the implications would not only be confined to a segment of society. Unfortunately for us, our nation seems to be sitting on mineral wealth from the coast all the way to the savannah grassland where I come from. And therefore, if we do not take the action now, what is happening is only going to become exacerbated. As I speak to you, you know, when we speak about this menace, the attention seems to focus on the southern parts of the country and the traditional areas, you know, eastern, western,
traditional mining
central,
areas.
Ashanti, the Dunkwaos, the Enchis, the Dadiasos. If you go to the upper east region, the upper west region, it is happening. If you go to my constituency, believe it or not, it builds us south. In the Chansa Kadema area, it is happening. And we even have the added burden of also now have to deal with illegal logging of rosewood, which is also devastating the environment.
Right.
Unfortunately, it seems to be the case that the foreign collaborators of the local illegal miners tend to come from the same sources, the Chinese. So the challenge we have truly requires a serious national effort, but it also requires retrospection. It requires us to put the national and the collective interest ahead. Everyone knows where I come from. For example, a man in China certainly will not even know how to get there, let alone to know a particular area where there is gold or to go and harvest rosewood. They have their local collaborators, and these collaborators come from across. We have heard stories of politicians. We have heard stories of opinion leaders. We have heard stories of professionals. We have heard stories of traditional rulers, all profiting and benefiting from the pillaging, the rape, and the destruction of our natural environment, which is the source of our livelihood.
Are actions going to work? Let me
Well, we have no choice.
Before
it has become so critical that we must succeed.
Yes, before Ibrahim comes in, Mr. Mewu says there are three approaches to deal. First, diplomatic talks with these persons perceived to be the foreigners who are aiding our local people to do the. That's the first step. Then he talks about the media and public advocacy that has started. Then he says, finally, there's going to be a militant and combatant approach to deal with them. Will it work?
Well, first of all, the issue of the first point, which has to do with dealing with
diplomacy,
the diplomacy.
Talking to the Chinese, yes, and those.
But why should we have to seek their consent? Why do we have immigration? I mean, do they just drop from the sky via parachutes? They come through the system. They come through processes and procedure. So I think that the first point is weak. If we determine that we want to stop this, what we need is the will and the concerted effort to say this is illegal, we are banning it, we are no longer issuing permits for small-scale mining. It is criminal. If you are caught, you will be dealt with.
So we don't need to
whether engage. You are Chinese, whether you are Indian, whether you are Burkina Faso.
Then he talks about a media and public advocacy.
Yes, I think that is very, very significant, and it is important because what it does is to galvanize the public, bring everyone to the same threshold in understanding the devastating effects of this practice, to get the masses behind the state and government so that we can clamp it down. But if people know the effects the way we do, they would understand that they, as we say these days, the few coins that they would get certainly would not be enough to buy their survival in the medium to long term. Human beings are rational.
And then the final one,
education is very important.
And then the final one that your government used and did not succeed talks about combatant and military approach.
I think it is necessary. We didn't succeed largely because we were not supported. We took a lot of backlash because we wanted to get the job done. In fact, there are people today who are in government who came out swinging left, right, and center in opposition to the task force that we had put together when the Honorable Inusa Fuseni was the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. So, whilst
Bright, you need to interrogate that.
I am happy that we have all come to the stage where we admit that action needs to be taken.
So you had opposition from the then government now.
I said elements.
About elements.
No, I didn't say government.
Name some names, because this one is new to me.
And party officials, regional party chairmen.
Suggesting that a tax force was not necessary?
Yes, and that we were encroaching on their rights because they had the needed permits. I mean, we can name it. It is no secret that the Ashanti regional chairman of the NPP is known to have been a very active participant in small-scale mining.
He said it. That's it.
Don't you even remember the case that he brought against? Don't you remember the case that he brought against government? You can get your guys to do research.
I do, but he says he has nothing to do with
the state had seized his excavators. Have you forgotten?
Yes, I do.
So, what was the basis of that case?
He's come out to say recently that he has nothing to do with small scale.
You are a journalist. Let's be honest and truthful. Did he file a case against
the state? He did, but since he's not here and he said he has no case.
Right.
But let me go to Ibrahim.
Very well.
Because that's a third case that, Ibrahim, I'm sure the three-pronged approach you're aware of.
I'm aware, but let me just quickly tackle this issue that Honorable Clements Abak talked about.
That there was an element in the now government
where Chairman
who were against the tax
Chairman
force.
Wontumi, you said that engaged in gold mining, am I right?
Yes, he did.
Here's the case. PNDC Law 2...
And I think it's
hold on, naturally. PNDC Law 284. In 1984, PNDC, that's when the Small Scale Mining Act was started.
Right.
1984. So if you're now engaging, I'm talking Chairman Wontumi, in that legality that law affords you,
There's nothing illegal about it.
It's about illegal.
Okay, all right.
And so, no, hold on.
Okay.
You know, Clement, let's do this back and
You
forth.
are now in government.
No, hold on.
I'm in opposition.
And
Let me talk more.
When you were giving your submission, I asked Bright to interrogate. Because I don't remember.
Yes,
Bright, I don't remember when opposition MPP then was saying that we do not support actions by the NDC government.
And the tax force.
Your pronouncements.
No. That's why I asked Bright to interrogate. Because that kind of statement...
And I'm giving you an example.
No, and I just corrected you. If I'm doing something illegal, which the PNDC, your antecedents, provisional national... yes, that's
Right.
you. Yeah. Chairman Rawlings' time...
There is a very interesting fact that I will reveal to you.
I will continue my submission.
Okay.
If Chairman Wontumi engages a law instituted in 1984 by your forebears, the PNDC, and today you're saying that he's engaged in this illegality, it's not correct and it's not factual. Now, coming back to the issue here, about a three-pronged approach. You know, it was in the 15th century that the Europeans, firstly the Portuguese, came to our coast. Am I right? And which they call the Gold Coast, because there's a lot of gold here. Good. 15th century, mark the time. Small history lesson. Next door.
He was the captain of the ship.
Why does the Ivorians have elephant as their symbol? Because ivory. That's why they call them Ivory Coast. Then also you have the Pepper Coast, which a lot of people don't know about. Now the Pepper Coast is Liberia.
Right. That's right.
Okay. So they named all the coasts by name. The Gold Coast, the Ivory Coast next door, and the Pepper Coast, which is to modern day Liberia. And Gambia as well, because they had peppercorn there. Why am I giving this history? 15th century they arrived. Meanwhile, we had gold here, did we not, before?
We had.
Good. Mansa Musa of the Ghana Empire, the Songhai, the Almoravids, where the Chinese went to in the 13th century, 1257, they were there. 1257, 300 years before the Portuguese arrived on our shores on the Gold Coast. Why this long preamble history, Ibrahim Ajay? Because cyanide, a key element of the process for extracting gold, to leach it from the rock and the minerals that it's attached to, was invented by MacArthur in 1874. Look at that, 400-year gap, 1874. So it tells you that we were able to leach. Leach means just to remove the gold from without the cyanide and the mercury.
From the beginning.
Thank you. So here's another approach that I want Honorable Peter Mewu to look at. If we ban the cyanide and the mercury, okay, ban it. Because today, those who are watching can go online. Corn starch, corn starch can be used to provide the leaching. Mercury is so efficient that 96% of the gold can be removed when you suspend the gold ore in it. And it extracts 96%. It's so effective.
So that's why they're using it.
That's why they use it. It's effective, its efficacy is so good. But now corn starch does the same. But they're looking at
less efficient.
Less efficient. But it does the same. So imagine a situation where Honorable Peter Mewu, you ban it. Because Mansa Musa, 1247, in Ghana, the Empire Songhai, the Almoravids
just
there,
managed to extract
gold. Were extracting the gold.
Way before that, it was being done.
I know, I'm just giving some date references so that we can understand that these chemical processes, which have been introduced, is 1884, 120-something years back. Are you with me? Because it leaches, it removes the gold from the ore quicker and in more quantities. But we were doing it before before the chemical processes of gold extraction were done.
So for you, it's not a stop to the practice. We should find a way to regulate it.
You know, you mentioned three prongs. I want to add another.
Okay.
Because the key thing is, how do we protect the environment? It's the mercury, the cyanide. These are the things that are killing the aquatic life.
And they cut down the trees to mine.
Of course.
Right.
No, I understand.
Even if they're not using the chemical,
I understand,
they cut down the trees.
but the degradation.
And they should pollute the rivers.
You know, nature has a beautiful way of finding its way. Nature, you cut down a tree, another will grow, within reason. Are you with me? But that's not the cure-all. I'm saying that the key thing is the chemical components that have killed aquatic life, killing cocoa farms, are you with me, because of the river bodies. Yeah, can you imagine if that aspect of what we're talking about was removed? the chemical pollution of our water bodies. And now we're just talking about land degradation, whereby there's you said cutting down the trees, something we already have now with timber. We know that illegal lumbering is causing a problem, but is that illegal lumbering killing aquatic life, the river bodies? It's not. So that's something we can attack head on, something that I know that Ochihini is doing in this part of Ghana. So I'm just using that. The lumbering does not have the consequential effect that the cyanide and the mercury polluting our water bodies is having. It's killing the rivers. So if you ban those substances, ban it, and then the Newmonts and Ashanti Goldfields will say, what's the alternative to make sure that we can do it efficiently? Then you use the corn starch. Go online, Bianton, and you see it. Corn starch. And you can use corn starch now to leach, to separate the gold from the ore.
I see.
And so that will help. Having said that, this issue about the Chinese and Indians and what have you, let's understand that this galamsey has been with us all this while. We have an opportunity, because I believe now we have a perfect storm. The storm in the sense that we are more of an environmentally aware as a nation, and I believe that President Akufo-Addo can use this opportunity whereby there's a strong engagement and make sure that we not only nip it in the bud, but we extinguish the galamsey element and make sure that only the legally constituted authorities are given it. And across board, the chiefs, the police services, members of parliament that he alludes to, or other quote-unquote illegal stakeholders, we need to expose them for who and what they are. They are killing Ghana in terms of our providence for future generations. Nobody, just like we talked about the earlier topic, nobody, Ofane, should ever give quarter to these people. Because it's not political, it's
That's
a cross-board.
This is
it's a cross-board bribe. And so when we
politics.
see you, the chief, we'll expose you. You, the police commissioner, you, the assemblyman, whoever, aiding and abetting.
Or the director of the Millers Commission.
Yes, and let's not just think it's just Chinese and Indians. We ourselves are doing it.
We
ourselves are doing it. And so let's ban the chemicals, bring in the natural alternatives such as cornstarch for separating gold from its ore, and making sure that we act as one body and one voice. I tell you, if we do this within a year or two, we can bring sanity to this situation, Bright. And I believe that President Akufo-Addo will do so. He has the mandate, he has the will, and I believe that he has the conviction to set things straight.
Right, just a quick one. I think you indicated that the former president, Rawlings, has applauded the media coalition. And I think that is in itself is a sign of the fact that we are all on board. Yes, we believe that this rip of our environment must come to an end. But you see, I don't agree with the minister when he talks about blowing up the
excavators when they are seized.
I mean, there's no reason why we cannot give them to the various MMDAs for useful work. Even in reclamation. We have to reclaim the land anyway. I mean, all of those pits that have been dug across the country. And I think that part of the sanctioning of those who are going to be apprehended for engaging in this illegality should be for them to reclaim the land and plant trees as part of their punishment. Because you can't just go destroy the environment, cut the trees, dig all those pits everywhere, and then you are just allowed to go be prosecuted, and that's the end of the story.
I agree. They'll do
yes, they should do it. That should be part of their punishment. So we shouldn't blow up
confiscate them,
the diggers.
Seize them.
I mean, if he wants a place, Bulsa South, a lot of our roads are not very well done. We'll put them to good use.
I'm grateful for your time, gentlemen, this one. Dr. Clement Apak is the Member of Parliament for the Bulsa South constituency, a member of the NDC. Grateful for your Friday morning.
It's always a pleasure.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy Kubasa.
So you say Kubasa.
Kubasa.
Fugwayiri. Kubasa.
And Ibrahim Ajay is a member of the MPP's communication.
I would say Ansakushu.
And then I will say,
okay. Lessons on my show. Grateful for your time too this morning. Okay. Right. All right.
So we'll learn.
All right. Okay. Have a great weekend. Ibrahim asking for blessings for us until we meet again on Monday. Have a great time. But up next is sports.